your boy, Q Lewis, and of course I got my man Bo in the building.
I'll show you.
What's going on with y'all, man? We're back for another episode of BBW. That's beers, bourbon, and whiskeys. Today, man, we moving along still with bourbons, but today we got Buffalo Trace. All right, so you see that Buffalo Trace. If you're not familiar with Buffalo Trace, we're gonna give you a little bit of history on where it came from, where the name came from, and then we go talk about some other stuff because we talk about bourbons, whiskeys, and life sometimes. So welcome again to another episode. If you're checking us out on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or on Facebook, leave us a comment. If it's a bourbon or a whiskey that we haven't tried yet, go ahead and leave us a comment, and we'll try it out and we'll do a show just for you. All right, because we're interactive like that. All right, so we just jump off into the Buffalo Trace. Now, before we got into the actual recording, my man Bo was telling me how this is kind of his everyday kind of bourbon. So why you say that? What makes you say this is an everyday kind of bourbon?
I mean, if you want to drink it straight, it's cool to drink straight, nice and smooth. It's got a nice, caramel kind of fruity flavor to it, whatnot. And even if you want to mix it with something, you want to mix it, put some ice in it or splash of water or ginger ale or whatever you want. You can still taste the flavor. It's not too overpowering, I just think it's a good all-around bourbon, for $26.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's kind of economical too, which is always something that we like to explore on on this show. Is something that's financially obtainable.
Right.
But the thing is too, though, I've had Buffalo Trace before, and I think the thing that you mentioned about the caramel notes the notes. What I think it is, though, is that little bit of sweetness, I think, is what makes it, an everyday kind of thing. It doesn't take away from the strength of the bourbon, though, because still, this is 45% alcohol, so this is still a higher proof bourbon. But at the same time, it's not harsh, though. And
it doesn't have like that smokiness almost. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I kind of like just speaking on the smokiness of it and comparing it with the fruitiness of it, basically. Which one is better to you, though? Do you like a smoky taste or a fruitier, kind of sweeter taste?
Honestly, it depends on what type of mood I'm in, right?
Yeah.
If I want to drink it straight, I like that kind of smoky taste, that aftertaste to it,
Okay.
Because most likely I'm having a cigar or whatever else with it. If I put a little ginger ale or some ice or some water or whatever, then I like it to be a little bit more on the fruitier side, I guess you could say. So it really depends on what my mood is.
Yeah, quite honestly, like I've had a few bourbons and a few whiskeys, and I do like the sweeter taste. Probably because it just tastes better. To me, it tastes better. Now, you mentioned before about mixing it with a cigar. I think that does make a difference, depending on what you're smoking with it, or possibly what you're eating with it as well. Though, because I know some people actually eat and drink alcohol. That's something I can't do. I haven't got hip to that yet, though. Like, I can't really drink alcohol and eat food. Like, it's just other than beer.
I can have other than beer, right?
I can drink beer with food.
I can have a drink, or something on the side, but I gotta have some water,
something,
or pop, or something else to go eat.
Right.
I just can't drink that, and that's it, right?
I've seen people that just drink alcohol, will have a straight 2 fingers of Buffalo Trace and a steak. You know what I'm saying?
Shit, right?
Yeah, I'm cool on that. I can't really do that. But if that's your thing, then. But I would say that something with a little sweeter taste will probably go better with food. I would just imagine. And again, even when you comparing it with cigars, I think even that's different though, because depending on the taste and the strength of the cigar, it might make you want to have something that's a little more sweet, like with this caramel notes, like Buffalo Trace has. Now, just looking at, I did a little bit of research, a very minute amount of research, just to see where Buffalo Trace came from. And the name itself, obviously, is about buffaloes. It actually did come from buffaloes. Basically, it was the path that they called them ancient buffalo.
Yeah.
The path that they
like 300 years ago, man.
Yeah, 300 years ago. Yeah, pretty much dug paths to new frontiers, right? So this is where people going to Kentucky, obviously. Paths going to Kentucky built by the buffalo, basically going to the water, I would suppose. Because that's where buffaloes roam, I believe. Home where the buffaloes roam. Yeah, you heard that before, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's how the name came about. And what's interesting about Buffalo Trace, and honestly most whiskeys and bourbons and probably other liquors as well, but what's interesting is just how far back the lineage goes. And I think that's something we were talking about earlier. It's just that alcohol is a very, very old industry. Not only is it an old industry, but obviously probably before it was actually industrialized, it was probably a thing before then, especially.
Oh yeah, each little
especially
town.
Africa.
Each little town, village, whatever you would call it, probably had their little master distiller.
Exactly.
Who's made this little thing and sold it to folks.
That's what I'm wondering though. I wonder how the first alcoholic beverage came about. I wonder who was sitting there.
First?
Yeah, who was sitting there fermenting some pears and was like,
They let something go sour, go bad.
And got drunk.
Can I do anything useful with this, right? Let me try it. And it's got.
I know that's
Slizzard, man.
That's funny though, right?
Hey.
It's an amazing story. I think to even guess how some of this stuff came about. I can't even imagine. But anyway, so that's how this Buffalo Trace came about. Originally, it had a different name, and I can't remember. It's OF something.
Yeah.
It was a different distiller.
AD, if you listened, man, what's the name? I know you're the expert. What's the name? I can't remember.
Right. Anybody who's the expert, just comment below. We'll definitely take that, and we'll give you a shout out in the next show. But yeah, with the Buffalo Trace, like I say, it's a rich history, and it's a rich history. And I know I always seem to get off on the tangent, but it's a rich history about some white people, though. It is a rich, historic, normally white people kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what kind of made me think about what we wanted to talk about today. And that's just, I'm looking at the lineage as far back as, I think it went back to 1775, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that, because I think it was 1775. But with that though, I'm just thinking about all of that's 100. Just to put it into perspective, that's 100 years before slavery was made illegal, and I use air quotes. Okay, if you're listening and you don't see the video, then I did use air quotes. So allegedly that was 1865.
I think so.
But I mean, this is 100 years before. And I only mention that because we were talking in a few episodes back about Uncle Nearest, which was basically a slave who showed Jack Daniels how to distill, basically. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious. I wonder what black movement or what black work went into something like Buffalo Trace or whatever it was before that. Only considering that it being 100 years before slavery was ended. Obviously they're not going to acknowledge people like that. So I just wonder how much effort is actually going in to see who actually helped out with some of that stuff. It would be kind of fun and interesting to figure some of those things out though. And not to take away anything from the distillers back in that day. Sometimes I just think we need a little of our due credit.
Hey, yeah, credit, but I'll give you the short answer.
Just the short answer.
Like all of them, right? Because I mean, what are we talking about, right?
Right.
And I know it's not like the South of Kentucky. I mean,
It's close enough. Close enough.
And, black folks then was slaves. They was property, right?
Right.
So I don't have to worry about naming this gentleman or woman and giving them credit or whatnot.
Exactly.
That's my property. That's a tool.
For sure.
So they ain't get it. Of course not. Yeah.
Right. We won't even get into speaking about tools, tools of separation or division. We won't get into that. But let's go ahead and bust it open. Then we do our ritual like usual. And like I told y'all before, that's a ritual that doesn't actually mean anything because again I explained in the last 2 episodes, but we'll explain it again. In the black culture, for whatever reason, we always smack the bottoms of the bottles, and that's supposedly some kind of ritual that allows you to drink without being sick or throwing up. But again, I've seen several people get sick and throw up, so I'm not sure if it really works. But we just still continue to do it. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So we're about to pour up some of this good Kentucky straight bourbon right now.
Good Buffalo Trace right here.
For sure. We'll take a little bit of that myself. You'll get us together. But yeah, so when you say this is the everyday kind of bourbon, how did you get turned on to it?
My homeboy AD Mass.
Shout out to AD.
Yeah. Shout out AD, Black Bourbon Society, whatnot. Dude's got a bourbon room in his house, right? And just kind of
room.
A whole room.
Like a walk-in club.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And we was in New Orleans, man, for my homeboy's bachelor party. And I was just like, hey, bro, what you drinking? And I think it was this, Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
And I was like, would I put Coke in it or whatever? He was like, man, you really want to, but he's like, try it like this first. Yeah.
For sure.
So I tried this, neat first, and I was like, damn, this straight,
Yeah.
And You did kind of, just kind of play with it ever since then, man. Put a little ice in it from time to time, maybe a little ginger ale or something.
Okay.
And
How does ginger ale change it a little bit? Because it's a little sweeter, so.
Yeah, I think it opens it up a little bit, like as far as the aroma, when you want to get into all that.
Yeah.
The flavor, though, I think it kind of really brings that, I don't know, something about that ginger that really brings that sweetness of that bourbon out for whatever, you know what I mean?
So basically, it sounds like with the sweeter ones, with the bourbons with a sweeter touch to it, the ginger ale actually makes it better.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
that's a fun fact for people who just get on Buffalo Trace. If you've never had Buffalo Trace, I do suggest trying it initially neat, just to see how it tastes to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to have a nice little cool drink, you know what I'm saying, you throw a little ginger ale in there and probably maybe like 1 or 2 ice cubes in there, just to chill it out a little bit.
A little splash of water, or and even if you want to, you want to be a little rebel,
a little rebel,
put a little splash of Coke in it, The bird, they gonna come get me, but
right? Yeah, they don't want to hear that shit.
Again, you pay for it, you drink it,
you drink it how you like. Yeah, for sure. Now, Buffalo Trace, how I got hip to it, obviously, like most bourbons, I think I got hip to it because of Angry Principal. So shout out to Angry Principal, always putting me up on this. And I'm not even sure how he got up on it, but he had some one day. And he sent me a picture of it. He's like, bro, you gotta try this. So I'm like, Buffalo Trace. And this is the weird thing. I've been drinking, not to say I'm an alcoholic or anything, but I've been drinking for quite a few years, like for a long time. And what's funny though is like all these bourbons and whiskeys, I had never heard of them. But then I started realizing why though. The bourbons and whiskeys aren't necessarily a part of our culture. And I say that just to say that I'm from the inner city, shout out to 48205 in the east side of Detroit. And it's basically just something that we weren't, it wasn't made available to us. So, of course, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know what to do with it. And look, this is a crazy parallel, right? But I just want to say this because I watch a lot of TV, right? And I watch a lot of old classical TV. So I was watching Good Times last night for the 50,000th time. And it was the one when Michael had the little kid that was bullying him, taking his lunch money. Yeah. Wasn't it Eddie or something? I can't remember. Yeah. But anyway, he invited him over to the house. And James ended up giving him a whooping, you know what I'm saying? And what's funny, though, is just like Eddie, I believe that was his name, and just like black people in general, it's like we don't know about things if we've never been introduced to them. And I say that because, he didn't understand the concept of two things. He didn't understand the concept of a father actually being a live-in at the house. Right. He didn't understand that. And he didn't understand the fact that he had been disciplined, but it was out of love. Right. He didn't know how to do it, how to deal with that experience. And I think that's with us. That's a crazy parallel, but I think that's the same with us with certain whiskeys and bourbons. Like we weren't ever given that experience, so we don't even know that it exists or even how to deal with it. And that's the kind of thing that we deal with this. And that's why for us, especially for me, I think this was a tough transition because I've never associated whiskeys or bourbon with black people. Like I just didn't. And even though it's weird because it's alcohol, why would you associate it with a race, right?
Right.
But we do that though. We're programmed. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But now that I've learned about it, it's funny. I feel like I wasted a lot of time drinking other things. You know what I'm saying? No diss to cognac and vodka and stuff like that. But I mean, I found something that I can relate with, and also, again, I think we mention this every episode, but it also is a unity thing, something that unifies me with a different arena in life. And I think that's what we all are looking for, some kind of elevation from where you are currently. And unfortunately, sometimes elevation does sometimes mean that you're integrating, and that's okay. That's fine. And I think this is important. Again, I think I mention this every show too. I think it's important for people like us to experience this and show this experience to other maybe black, and I always say black men. I know black women drink bourbon too. But I just want to give y'all the experience to know that you can be from 48205 and get into those circles that drink bourbons and then learn some of the history behind it and actually drink. This probably sound weird, but actually drink with a purpose though. And I think for me, bourbon and whiskey originally came with a purpose because when everybody told me about drinking bourbon and whiskey, it was all everything that came behind it was you'll be drinking this in those certain circles.
Right. Yeah. Right. I want to address that too, right? The last couple of shows we've been talking about, this getting into a certain circle, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify something. Like, it's not about trying to integrate so much that as you forget who you are or what you want to accomplish in life.
True that.
It's about getting a hold of that information, and those potential networks to create wealth, basically, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about being able to go to the country club with Todd and Timothy and all those guys, right? Because I wouldn't do that no way, right? Shout out to Todd and Timothy. But it's more about just trying to get that information and getting plugged into some of those networks to so you can flip it and make it work for us. You know what I'm saying? That's what, exactly. Infiltrate.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no doubt, because we do mention it a lot, and I think it is a networking tool, but like you said, you definitely don't want to lose yourself in the aspect of networking, because that's how a lot of things go wrong, especially for us, because we I don't know, somehow we're easily manipulated. But that's a whole nother show there. And just to kind of segue into what I wanted to talk about today, actually, which is probably going to be a rough segue, because I don't really know how to segue it anymore. I thought about it earlier, and it made perfect sense, and now it doesn't quite, but I'm still going to do it anyway.
I think it does, though. It still makes sense, yeah.
So what we're going to go into is, I mentioned about Buffalo Trace and the long lineage of a lot of white families. And again, I mentioned that there probably were some slaves or I say non-free people who may have who may have contributed to this though. And at this point, you kind of just want some credit. Obviously, credit that wasn't given before, because at some point we weren't even considered human beings. We're 3/5 of a human being. Check that knowledge if you're not sure what I'm talking about. But yeah, I say with that in mind, I just started thinking about today, and I started thinking about those people who did contribute to some of these flourishing industries who aren't getting their just due. So then I started thinking about, reparations, right? So that was a rough segue, but you get where I'm coming from. I thought about reparations because, I mean, at some point, I do feel like there was a large enough contribution from the black community to be getting some kind of reward for something we never got even acknowledged for. You know what I'm saying? Now, we talk about reparations. Obviously, that can come in a lot of forms. But just in general, what do you think about that idea of reparations?
I think it's a great idea. I think, how do I want to say this? I'm not going to say it's a great or bad idea, right?
Okay.
It's something that black folks are entitled to. I'm just going to put it out there.
Okay.
And just for all the work, you look back at it and, slavery was abolished in 1865. That's not a terribly long time ago.
It's not
right?
a long time ago.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not trying to say like, hey, like I'm out here plowing fields and nothing like that. Right. Well, what I am saying is,
what you're looking at, just like what you said, you looking at just looking at this company alone has been around longer than slavery has been over. I mean,
right.
Just think about that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, most deaf. I'm just saying that, when the conversation we had earlier, like we were talking about, 1775 and what, and I don't know Buffalo Trace's exact history. If I dug into it, I'm sure we could find all that out.
Right.
But when you own people as property and you use that property to help build your business, yes, those people are entitled to something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yes. Yeah, and kudos to you. You build a great business or whatever, and that's awesome. You should profit from that, right?
Right. No, most definitely.
Yeah, but you should also, and like I said, I don't know their story, but like in the story of Jack Daniels, we talked about a little earlier.
Right.
And they're starting to kind of recognize that, so Uncle Nearest is really the one that put him on game, so
right.
We need to pay some homage, we need to do this to the Nearest estate.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about,
and that makes sense.
It makes total sense to me. Why would that not make sense?
Right, and for them, that's almost a form of reparations. So, and just in general, though, I think that the overall contribution of, and I won't even, I just say Black America. We just call it Black America. I think the overall contribution deserves some type of reward, only because of the absence of acknowledgement for so long. And I'm not sure exactly, I think we'll get into this in a moment, but I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I think that it definitely needs to be addressed. And the funny thing is, though, is that out of all of the years of presidencies, out of all of the years of politics, that this has not been addressed to the point where it's even like a votable situation. Like, ain't that weird though? Like, at least, at the very least, it should be voted on. Like, it hadn't even got that far.
If I was totally blind to like how things operate in the United States of America, right, and how things work, yes, that would be very weird to me. Like what?
But since you know.
But since I know what goes on here, no,
Right.
it's not. And we've kind of talked about this before offline. Is I don't want to get too far, off base here, but though, you get to politics, the whole two-party thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to rely on this particular candidate to, support my needs and what I want, in my community,
Right.
Up there at this federal level and whatnot.
Yeah.
And in truth, Todd and Timothy, and nowadays, Natalie,
Natalie.
they don't care about what you want. They care about what you want up until the point you cast that vote, right? So, getting away for Republicans and Democrats, we got to stop relying on other folks to basically do our work, right? Like, we're contracting this out. Hey, can you guys do this?
Right.
We're just going to do it ourselves, That's where that third party comes in, and that's where you have to kind of get away, shift that paradigm that, well, man, I don't want to throw my vote away and nothing like that.
Right.
But,
Dog, just piggybacking on that though, just about what you said just then about not really being or being important enough up until it's time to actually vote on something or to make a change. This is kind of, I think we mentioned this earlier too. How do you think that integration really affected us though? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, like out of learning all of this stuff after seeing how history unfolded, seeing where we are now. I mean, obviously there's a few more opportunities, but at the end of the day, though, I would think that my ancestors and probably the generations before us, probably looking back at that idea of integration, like, damn, maybe we should have thought that one through.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I'm not totally convinced that it was there's so much their idea of integration.
Okay.
Because when we look back at segregation, right, everything's supposed to be separate but equal.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's the separate part we had an issue with.
It was
the equal.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, I got to use another bathroom or whatever, but why is my dirty as all hell? And why,
Yes.
That's the issue, right?
Got you.
So
we could have been cool with staying separate. Just we needed to be the same though.
And again, if we look at the world, how it is, the United States, and there's a couple other Western countries, that your makeup is kind of like of everybody,
Right.
but that's not the norm in the world, right? Like,
True.
typically wherever you from, like, that's your people, that's who you are,
Right.
and I know there's a few countries, that, like I said, got differences, but to me, man, like, I don't think the separate was such a bad thing,
Right. It's the equality
it's the equality part of it,
Sure.
and the equity, that stuff. But
man,
not the integration is a bad idea.
Yeah,
I just
not
think,
necessarily the greatest idea either.
I think you can have good ideas, and one idea is better than this one, right?
Right.
And to me, I think integration is probably a good idea, but I think if we'd actually kept our things to ourselves, and let it evolve like it was going to, that would have been a better idea, a better situation for us.
And the only reason I wholeheartily agree with that is because you look at other cultures who also live in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. They've continued to pretty much be separate and operate within the the realms of the of the union, I guess we call it.
And it's not a bad thing.
It's not,
and that's why I'm so just like leery of this far left liberal movement, right? Because they just want everything to blend together, and it's like then you lose who you. No, see, I don't totally agree with all that, right? Not that you can't interact with another group of people or whatnot, right?
Oh, yeah,
but you have your own identity, like you said, never lose, yourself and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's the same for your culture and your people too, right?
Yeah.
You should still be able to go back to something and like. We always talk about now we need to build black wealth and we need to do this and we spend so much time trying to integrate, we didn't do that, right?
True.
So
yeah, and I'm just looking at that and thinking back, like I mentioned before, I believe many moons ago, I was an intern at Black Enterprise magazine, and I remember when we first met Earl Graves Sr., the old dude, the founder.
right.
I was just thinking about him and Ed Lewis, who was the founder of Essence, and Johnson John Johnson, the founder and editor of Ebony. I'm just thinking about them, how they had this whole idea of black wealth and were willing to do that and navigate the system without mainstream media or white media at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that integration gave us the kind of, I don't want to say it like this, but kind of gave us the softness to not think that that's necessary anymore. So I think Black Enterprise was a fully black entrepreneurial magazine, and the fact that something like that actually is still necessary today.
Mm.
You don't feel like it is, you know what I'm saying, because you got so many black entrepreneurs and black business owners and black million and billionaires.
But there's so many years of equity you get in capital that could have been built up to this point.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think that individuality still, to a degree, needs to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like you mentioned, the far left always makes it seem like integration and inclusion, I think is the word, the hot word of the day, inclusion, that you focus on that so much that you lose sight of things like a Black Enterprise or Ebony magazine, or Jet. Obviously, that's with Ebony too.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at things like that, and when you lose that tenacity or that desire to build for your own, you kind of do get lost,
right.
Lost in the sauce, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? All in the search for inclusion. I think at the end of the day, though, and this is probably tough to say too, though, but I think at the end of the day, I think you mentioned it before when we talked about the 10%, but everybody can't go.
No.
Everybody's not going to be included. It's just, it's kind of the way of life. Somebody may get left behind.
Like I say all the time, though, you got to find your 10%,
right.
10% of your soldiers.
Yeah.
You take him and her, and that's who you ride with, right? You know,
for sure.
And because, like you said, we not.
It's not gonna ever be.
It's not feasible to get everybody on board. That's just not gonna happen, right?
Right, feasible. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's not feasible.
Yeah, take your 10% and ride.
Yeah, that's the truth. That it's funny though. Like I said, just looking at not just Buffalo Trace, but any of the liquors. Just looking back on its lineage and how they were able to do that though.
Mm.
I mean, like even though it was on the, I mean, I don't want to put it like that, but even though it was probably on the backs of certain people, but at the same time they were able to kind of carve a niche or a Buffalo Trace.
Mm.
they were able to forge a path. And I think that even though, and that's the funny thing, even though they were kind of, I guess I'll say, in power at the time, they still thought it was necessary to forge a path.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, I just feel like we're in a position though, like I mentioned before, that we started thinking that we didn't actually made it, and that kind of take away from is it tenacity is the word I'm looking for? Or the passion, I guess, because I don't want to, like, we in a situation where at this point I have to say, I have to give acknowledgement to the fact that I think we are a little bit further along, and that may be a benefit of integration, I'm not sure, but I don't think that needs to take away from our ingenuity, our ability to move on our own. And I guess with saying that, I got to ask you this though, with integration and inclusion being like the thing, do you think it's possible for us to move on our own at this point within the system and shit? That's a tough one, though, right? To a certain degree.
Up to a certain point, yeah. There's always going to be, if you don't hold that final or that absolute, I don't want to say absolute power, but that final yes, I guess you could say, then it's always going to be up to a point, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You can create like the organization that I work for, they have a African American like a affinity group, that does a whole lot of things and whatnot, and responsible for some projects, but they still report to a particular set of people. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, so I mean, up to a point,
man, and that's how discouraging is that though? Like,
I think it depends on how you look at it, right? So for somebody that's happy to be there, I don't think it's discouraging at all. Right?
They just happy to be there.
Yeah, then you look at somebody more in line with like the way I feel, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't appreciate the opportunity.
Right.
It's like I just want to do more than this.
Yeah.
And I want to do more of it for myself.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, that's why we have entrepreneurs.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
I just think this is more along those lines, man.
I mean, that's been the thing, though. I mean, just looking at connecting it back to Buffalo Trace and other bourbons, just tracing it back to that. These people, even though they may have been in a little bit more power, obviously, because it's 100 years more of slavery during the time, but just looking back on them, they had to have the same ideology, though, because forming a distillery and selling alcohol obviously wasn't the norm. So they definitely went against the grain as well. And I think for us, we've got to continue to, I guess the way I would say it is push the envelope to get to a point where people hundreds and hundreds of years later can look back on us as, you know, like some pioneers, like, you know, like some of the distilleries.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I use this platform, and I think this is a good way to you know, compare the two. I think I use this platform with this show and a few other shows that I produce, and I think that it's important that we start kind of owning some of our stuff, and the internet actually has allowed us to do that, especially when it comes to media. Mm-hmm. So I think at this point we talk a lot about how the media portrays us and how, you know, that they push out to the masses what people should perceive us as. But I think at this point the internet has given us an opportunity to change that narrative. Like we can start putting out our own medium, and I say that only because I was watching I was looking at Facebook and going through my timeline, and I seen a lot of people talking about Tyler Perry's new shows, like I think it's the Oval Office or something, okay. I think, and Sisters, I think it is. And I seen a lot of people like kind of talking down on it. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm gonna tell you like this. I'm not necessarily a Tyler Perry fan. Like I am a fan of what he's doing though. Mm-hmm. I might not definitely be a fan of his work, but how could you knock his hustle? Like he really putting on a platform for black people, like more than anybody out. Like he's put on more, I believe. I might be wrong in saying this, and I know a lot of Spike Lee fans gonna be mad at this, but I think he may have put more people in position than Spike Lee did. I don't know if that's safe to say, because I'm a Spike Lee fan first, because obviously he came first, but I think that he's moving in the right direction. And I'm not gonna hate on his projects. I might not love all of them, mm-hmm. but I definitely ain't gonna hate on what he's trying to do though.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I'm not even gonna compare the two. I'm gonna say they're both putting people on.
Okay.
I mean, they both doing you know big things. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel what you're saying about Tyler Perry. You know, I'm not really a fan. I'm not gonna go out and watch, you know, the Madea movies right? Like that, right? I mean, I'm not really a fan of it. But like you said, how can you not respect and admire his hustle? He built his own studios. I don't think folks understand the power of that, right? Like anybody he is the person with that final yes or no.
Is that right?
You know, he holds the keys. Him.
Exactly. You know, we getting back to what you just said about who is that final person who makes the decision.
Right.
He's put himself into a position where he is, and the funny thing about it, and again, I may be saying this, and this is probably unpopular. And it may be because of my biased opinion, but although he is, I would say, a protege of Oprah, I will always, I feel bad saying it, but I will always hold Tyler Perry in a higher regard than Oprah. I don't really like Oprah.
I mean,
I don't even know. You know what? I'm not gonna say I don't like her. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say that Oprah put me in a weird position because she from Chicago or something, right? Right? She from Chicago, so she know what it is. I'm from the 48205. I feel like hip hop was a culture that we not only created, not 48205, but black people, because obviously it came from the boogie down. But I think it's a culture that we both developed and we need to keep encouraging in order to move forward and try to find some ownership in it. And I say all of that just to connect it back to Oprah. When I never actually watched Oprah's TV show or her talk show, but for a time she never would have like any hip hop affiliated guests on there. And to me, I didn't like that, and I didn't want to make that like a judgment on her character, but I just felt like I don't see how you can have a major platform like that and not give us some voice. Like, she didn't have hip hop people on there too. I would probably say, like, she probably had Will Smith on there, but this was the actor Will Smith. This wasn't hip hop Will Smith. And then she probably had Jay-Z on there or something, but this is mogul Jay-Z.
Yeah, I got you.
Like I think that when you kind of disregard, and I ain't gonna say she disregarded, but I am gonna say she disregarded. I don't know. We probably gonna get shut off for this, but I feel like she left me in the dark, and for that I kind of didn't like her. So, and then I do hold Tyler Perry in a different regard, even though he benefited because of her though. Don't get it wrong. Like, it's only a Tyler Perry because it's Oprah. Like, period. It wouldn't have even happened probably, because I think Oprah, like, he'd have did the plays and maybe would have did some movies, but I don't know if this whole studio concept would have even been an idea if Oprah hadn't done a lot of things first. So, but I don't have to like her though. I don't have to.
No, you
I can respect her.
No, you don't have to like her. I mean, I think from a business aspect, you can't do anything but respect Oprah. At the very least, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say this, as black folks, we talk about creating black wealth and helping each other out and doing this and putting each other on and sticking together in unity. No, I'm not gonna say nothing about hate, but okay. I think the thing we forget is, yes, as black people, we do want to do that, but we are people and we are diverse people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, like, what may appeal to one, it may not appeal to another, and like, I don't know what Oprah's intentions were, right? She may have been like, oh, I don't want to, have that persona perceived on my network or whatnot, or maybe this is the image. I don't know, whatever it was. But we still had that option, right? Okay, do I want to watch her or do I not? No, yes or no, right? But I think obviously, we still support and we still respect, right? I think where it gets lost though with, how can I say this? Communicating that hip hop culture that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think where it gets lost is like a lot of the hip hop culture was not meant for primetime TV.
True,
right?
True that.
And so, and I think we forget that at times, and like
want to try
sometimes
to
we
everything.
Yeah. Sometimes we just can't. Some of the stuff we got to keep to ourselves, right? You know what I mean?
I feel.
But I could definitely see how someone would think that about Oprah.
We said it like that now.
I mean, we just can't forget that we diverse people too, even though we're black.
Right. And that's the thing, though, and I think that's what happens more often than not. That we are diverse people, and at the end of the day, I think we hold that as a negative as opposed to a positive.
Right.
And honestly,
right.
It's a positive thing.
Yeah, most definitely.
To basically be in the same group and have so many different.
So many
different things going
college,
on.
Man. Just think about some of the cats we do in college.
True that.
Sorry to interrupt, but man, that's major right there.
Yeah, that's major, and we should start looking at that as a positive and not a negative. Mm-hmm. So like when people, because what happens is, and this is, I don't want to get too far into this, but what happens is definitely the oppressed start thinking like the oppressors, and what I mean by that is that we get into our own group, and instead of seeing our differences as something positive, we see it as something negative, and we try to differentiate ourselves, which is what racism is essentially anyway, right? So we start doing that within our own circles. Mm-hmm. That shit is crazy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that shit is crazy.
Yeah.
Psychologically, dog, racism and the things that happen, slavery and all those things that happened before our generations affect the way we think, and that's psychological issues is so. It's not, people don't take it as seriously as they should, I don't think. Because those things actually do play a part in your everyday life, even to this point. Like, you think you 2 or 3, 4 maybe generations off from slavery, which is not really a long time, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like, that still affects you, and you don't even realize it, though. Right? And that's the crazy thing about it. And your perception of the people the group that you belong to, because no matter how you look at it, I mean, I don't want to be divisive, but at the end of the day, when you were born as an African American or a black individual, you belong to a group, and you're in that group.
Yep.
So at this point, that's something I never thought about until this show, and that's crazy that we really got to start looking at our differences as something positive and not negative. Because you see people like, again, we crack jokes about the Black Bourbon Society because you know they're bourbon snobs and they're a lot more advanced than we are. And I'm cracking jokes, but at the same time,
I'm trying to get to that level.
It's a benefit from being different like that. Just like you got kids like back in our day, a lot. Maybe not so much now, but back in the day, coming from the inner city, like kids who spoke with proper English. Like you talk like you white, like that's not. That shouldn't even be a thing, though, right?
Hey, let me say this real quick. Black kids, it's cool to be smart. I was gonna say it's cool to be the smartest person in the class.
Bruh, say that again. Say that
Black
again.
kids, it is cool to be smart. I'm telling you.
It is very cool to be smart. I didn't
be smart, man.
I didn't understand it until I was an old man. It's cool to be smart.
Yeah.
The whole time I thought you had to be stupid to be cool and shit. I mean, it's crazy though, right? Like you had to be ignorant. You had to not know anything to be cool.
Not that black kids should be watching the Bourbon podcast, I guess, but
parents.
But parents,
yeah. Tell your kids, man, it's cool to be smart. And I think we are all getting a little bit better at that. I think so because like a lot of people, you know, went away to school. Some people educated themselves. A lot of people start owning their own businesses, so they had to start telling their kids like it's cool to be the nerd. It's cool.
You know what I think about?
Man, look.
I don't want to get all it. I think about The Wire.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, little dude growing up, his mom's like, she's a neighbor.
Dog, my man's son, because his old man was a dope man for real.
Yeah.
And dog, that's
man,
real life.
That's it. That's real. Yeah.
Yo, when I seen that, and just in case y'all not hip to The Wire, man, basically what happened was, Naaman, I can't remember Naaman's old man. Was it Weebay?
I think so.
I think it was Weebay. It was his son, and his old man was like the dope man for real. He went to jail. Then he started staying there with his moms. His moms really was encouraging that life though.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to be a nerd. Like he wanted to learn stuff. He got comfortable at school where he started doing speaking. Like he started writing and stuff. Like he really was into education. And she really was like, "No, bro, you a dope man. Like get over it.
Go make this money." You know?
Yeah, and that's crazy how influential parents can be though. And why would you influence your kid to do something negative? I don't know, but
anyway,
but that's the way we were brought up though. You brought up in a situation where you think that negativity, that ignorance is what's cool or what's needed, and that's really not the case. Like dog, at this point, it is so much more beneficial to be a nerd. I mean, honestly, just going back to The Wire though. Dog, why you think what was my man?
Y'all be on Facebook and Instagram all day long. What you think Zuckerberg was?
Right, nerd.
He was a nerd. He was that guy.
A nerd for sure.
Now look at him.
Right.
On his platform. Me too.
Right. Me too. Yeah, all of us. Yeah.
All of us.
But like it's hella important to be a nerd though. Just like just going back to The Wire though. What was my man's name on there? Stringer Bell, right?
Oh, okay.
Stringer Bell was the
he was the books man.
He was the book smart.
Yeah.
And he ended up running the show because he was the nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like dog, I'm telling you, like it's so many benefits to being smart.
Yeah.
and again, I know we always make this reference with Bourbon's Buffalo Trace being one of those, but it can get you into the room with people who are smarter than you, or at least on your level. I feel like to me though, when I hear people say that, what's that saying? Like you shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. I certainly agree with that, dog. I agree with that only because like every day, no matter what you think you know, you need to be learning something
every day.
And if you're not dealing with somebody that you can learn from, like you like mentally dead.
Hey, what's that saying? The fastest way to be a millionaire. Hanging out with
millionaires, right? For sure. And that's the truth. And I think 50. They brought up this old video of 50 Cent. He was saying about that. He was like, man, if you still hanging in the same circles, who not doing more than you, then you go end up doing what they doing.
Right.
And that's the truth. And that's no diss to people in your. I gotta say it like this. That's no diss to people in your circle, because some people in your circle, like I think Meek Mill said that in one of his joints, like everybody just can't go. Like sometimes people are there for what they're there for, and they just can't always make the journey.
If they're in your circle, they should support and respect that. You know, so everybody gonna make different moves. It's just gonna happen because again, we all diverse people, right?
Yeah, we diverse.
So everybody gonna make different moves, man. You know, some people gonna they gonna shoot up there like that, right?
Yeah. And some people just go,
yeah, you know, I ain't gonna try to pull my homeboy down, you know,
exactly.
and support him, you know, hey.
Man, that's why I say, man, every time we have shows and every time we talk about stuff, I say, man, my circle is dope, bro. Like, I really appreciate y'all for sure, because y'all put me in situations where, like, my circle is to this point, I can be the smartest person in the room on one thing, and then the next subject we on, I gotta fall back, and then I learn something. And I think if you're not in a position there where you got a squad where you can really learn something, I really took that for granted. I honestly took that for granted until I got old. And it's amazing now. You got the internet and all these old archived videos of people telling you that stuff. If somebody that really sat down and really made this clear to me when I was younger, bro. So we telling y'all now. So you ain't got no choice. Like, at this point, dog, everything that we know, all the access we have to information, it's no way that history should ever repeat itself with black people, dog. It's just it's way too much access to information, bro.
We can go ahead and build a Wakanda. You know, I mean, we ain't gonna be on the reverse colonization and nothing like that. Right. You know, because I don't want nothing they get. Well, you know,
I mean,
I want that power structure. Right,
that power structure.
I'll take that.
Right, for sure, man. All right, man. We done got way to deep off into that. We gonna spin it back to the Buffalo Trace, and then we gonna get up out of here. We ain't gonna hold y'all too long. Now, as far as the Buffalo Trace go, and as far as the bourbons go, now with this, what you say for somebody who's just getting into bourbons or whiskeys, would you say this would be one of the first choices, or should you try something else first before going to the Buffalo Trace?
See, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about bourbon, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that I can say yes, and I can say no. You know what I mean? Right. And that's what I like about the versatility and variety of bourbon, man. Yeah. Like, you know, what we talked about, Yellow Label, Four Roses, last episode, right? And like, yeah, that could be a dope starter bourbon, you know? Yeah. And you can get that, and like, you might not like Four Roses at all, but like, it's still bourbon. Buffalo Trace comes in, you're like, okay, I dig that, you know what I mean? So.
Now, yeah, just thinking about the Four Roses, we just did that last week. In comparison, what would you say on that tip? Because I would say, if you're just starting out, I honestly would say I would probably do Four Roses before I did Buffalo Trace. Only because I think the Buffalo Trace had a little bit more bite to it than the Four Roses. So I would say if this is something you're not hip to, like if you're not hip to doing whiskeys or bourbons, I would say if you're going through bourbons, I would say Four Roses first, and then you will probably be ready for Buffalo Trace. What do you think about that?
I think I'm in line with that. Yeah, because Buffalo Trace might be like, you know, your old man's, best friend, uncle, or something like that. It might be the liquor that he drinks or something like. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah. If I had to rank the two as far as like what do I start at and then what do I go to next, right. I'll say start at Four Roses, see what you like about it, that Yellow Label, and then go to maybe some Buffalo Trace or some other bourbons we'll get to down the line. But yeah.
Maybe the Larceny.
Yeah, maybe Larceny. Elijah Craig, Woodford.
Right.
Some
had some of that this past weekend.
Yeah. Oh, the Elijah Craig?
Both.
Oh, both. Yeah. They both dope, I think. But for different reasons.
I didn't realize that Elijah Craig was so high in alcohol.
Yeah.
Man, I wasn't prepared for real.
It was like 102 or 103?
Yeah, something crazy. Yeah, something crazy. But that was crazy. I just went back to that, and I left that whole bottle of Larceny. I should have brought it with me because they probably not gonna drink it.
To me, though, that's like one of the tackiest things you can do.
To take it back with you,
to drink like half the bottle and then pick it up and take it. Like if you had
I never do that.
Like if I'm telling them like my sister or something like that, so give me my damn bottle.
Right.
But I'm like somewhere.
I never do it.
It might hurt, and I might think about it. You know what I mean?
I thought because that shit was good.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I thought about it.
I will say this though: if it's like 1:45. And liquor stores about to close. In the state of Michigan, because like liquor stores in other states close at like 8 p.m.
Right, basically.
But if it's like 1:45 and I ain't got nothing to drink, I'm taking my liquor. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right.
I'm gonna need that, bro.
I'm gonna need that right there.
For sure, man. Also, too, man, I want to let y'all know, man, this is an eight episode season. So at the end of the 8 episodes on our season finale, we are actually going to do a ranking. Of the just on the ones that we actually drank during the season, but we are going to do a ranking of whiskeys and bourbons at the end. So you get to check that out on the season finale to see which ones we gauge from 8 to 1, basically. We do it that way. Also, too, if you're checking out right now, you can put your comments under below and tell us what your top 8 whiskeys and bourbons are. That does include Scotch as well, because we're going to include a whole bunch of those. Which next week we might go to the Scotch next week, because we haven't did Scotch.
Which one, you want to do a blend? Or you want to do a single malt?
Let's do a blend first.
Okay.
Yeah, single malt is probably a little bit more intricate, so we'll go to the blend first.
Okay.
And we're definitely not gonna do Cuddy Sark though. I think that's off the table. Shout out to the old men that still drink Cuddy Sark. Real quick though, just a comment on that. I had Cuddy Sark when we found an old bottle in my granddad's house. Had to be about 40 or 50 years old. Mm-hmm. We broke it open, man. Me, my old man, and my uncle, and they were used to it because they used to drink it. But man, I tell you, when I had a shot at that, I'm super straight on Cuddy Sark. I probably got a better palate now, but back then I certainly didn't. Though. But anyway, man, Buffalo Trace was definitely the thing today, man. I think that it's a great starter bourbon, but if you're just now getting into bourbons, I would say go ahead and try the Four Roses first. Before you get into this, it's kind of got the same sweetness, a little more caramel in the Buffalo Trace, so it's a little bit sweeter. But there's more bite in the Buffalo Trace. So you gotta be careful.
It gets up on you a little quicker.
Yeah, this nigga up on you, dog. Yeah. But we're gonna round it up for today, man, and get up out of here. I want to thank everybody who checked us out today. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, man. That's Beards Bourbon Whiskey. All right, the podcast. Just punch in those three words, and we'll pop up on IG and on Facebook, man. And make sure that you use the hashtag everybody loves BBW, all right? So make sure you use that hashtag everybody loves BBW, and we'll see any comments that you post, and we'll go ahead and talk about them on the next show. But to the next time, man, we're going to go ahead and salute to y'all. Salute. To the next time, man, you already know what it is, man. This is Beers, Bourbon, and Whiskey. Everybody loves BBW. I got my man Bo in the building.
It's cool to be the smart kid in class. Sashay.
Yes, for real. It's definitely cool, man. And drink more bourbon, dog. You'll live longer. Until the next time, man. It's your boy Q Lewis. We up out of here, man. Peace out, y'all.